Hey, what's up? I'm Jay. Welcome back. Thank you guys for all the interest and support you guys been showing me recently on the channel and the interest you've been showing in the videos. I'm glad you guys are liking it. So let's just keep it going. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a tutorial. We're going to be sculpting a hand. So I've been doing hand studies, in and around different projects. I've had the question a few times, hey, can you do a hand sculpting video or tutorial? I want to sculpt hands. So I'm not sure how many of you out there want to learn how to sculpt hands from me, but I think this is going to be good if you're interested in sculpting in Zbrush and getting better at sculpting in Zbrush. Sculpting hands is the perfect subject if you're a little bit comfortable already, because you got to use all the fundamentals, all of the sculpting techniques and brushes apply. It'll really help you just work on your sculpting game. Like the difficulty level is just right, the anatomy and proportions and stuff. And then there's a lot of potential for character and personality. And we all have hands. So it's the perfect subject. You can take pictures, you can look at your hand. So every time I'm sculpting a hand, I'm looking at my other hand. I actually choose to do left hands most of the time, because then I can just look at my other hand. So I think this is going to be a really good thing for you to do if you're interested in learning how to sculpt better. So I really hope you enjoy this one. I hope you learned something. Hit that like button if you do. Subscribe to see more videos like this. And let's jump in and sculpt a hand. All right, so starting out, we're going to start with a Dynameshed sphere. You can start with one of the scenes that come with Zbrush if you want in the light box. And we're going to start with a really low resolution. In this case, it's set to 64. And that just lets us push and pull, make really big changes really quickly. So we want to stay as low as we can for as long as we can, and only increase the amount of polygons as we need it, as we move through like more forms. So we're pushing and pulling, we're using the move brush, and we're just trying to get the sphere into the shape of a palm. Starting to use Dam Standard a little bit early, and that's just to sketch out these like major wrinkles or major form directions. And this stuff isn't meant to stay, it's just to give me like places to measure, and so I can see what's going on. So I'm just marking things in there. So drawing a mask now at the end of the palm, and then pulling out the arm, and then re-dynameshing. You want to re-dynamesh every time you're making a really big change, because then that remakes the topology, remakes the geo. And it like evenly distributes it. So you can push and pull quite a bit and it's okay. But if you're stretching it too much, you need to re-dynamesh right away. So then starting to do some sculpting here of forms, refining forms. This is going to be an ongoing process. You can see me now starting to sculpt with the clay buildup brush. And that's my brush of choice when it comes to sculpting. You can see how I'm laying kind of strips. And I'm going to be doing this throughout, but already starting to break up the forms and add a little bit more. I use the clip brush real quick here just to slice off the top, smush it down, and flatten the end of the palm. That's where I'm going to start pulling out the fingers. So I draw a mask for the first finger, and then I pull it out. Then I re-dynamesh again. And then I use the clip brush again to just make some quick planes on the finger, just to flatten out the sides real quick. Draw a mask for the second finger, pull that out. Again, using the clip curve brush to make some quick planes. So now with these two fingers, I can really start to make sure my overall proportions are okay and measurements. So I'm looking at the relationship between those two fingers, the middle finger being the longest finger, and then making sure that that length of that finger in relation to the palm is good. So right now with the arm, the palm, and these two fingers, you kind of have enough to already start to make sure your proportions are getting in the general right zone there. So then I draw a mask over on the end of the palm here. That's going to be the thumb. And I pull out that first knuckle, which is not too far out, but starting to go from thick to thin here, just so I can start to stretch this out. I pull out the ring finger. You can see I'm kind of jumping around. This helps me to kind of work on everything at once. And it also helps me like key off different things. I'm never like focusing on one area until it's done. I am jumping around a lot. So I'm trying to be as clear as I can for the sake of this video, but in reality, I am like kind of jumping around. I use the move brush on the tips of the fingers. So I'm actually holding Alt and then using the move brush to pull out the tips of the fingers to round those tips out and get those shapes kind of working a little bit better so it's not so blunt. Then I pull out the rest of the thumb to get my next two knuckles, start to push and pull that around with move brush too. And also as I'm working, sometimes I need to make large adjustments, and I'm doing that just by masking. Also, I could use the lasso mask, however, whatever makes sense to make the mask for that particular thing. And then I'm just making big movements. If I need to readjust proportion, if I need to start putting things into different places, or even posing, which we're gonna start here soon. So then I pull out the pinky, and now I'm starting to add more detailed forms. Again, using that clay buildup all the time, sculpting with clay buildup, and then also my own little variation of the standard brush, which is just the standard brush with a kind of chiseled tip. And I'm using that to lay down things like the tendons on the top of the hand, maybe some veins. But those two brushes now starting to add more detailed secondary forms now. So now that I have all the fingers, then I polygroup them. I can just draw a mask and then group by mask. You can also group visible, however you want to do it, but I want to get polygroups on those fingers, each finger, so that I can just quickly select them now from now on if I need to work on them and isolate them, which we're going to do because we're going to start posing the hand now. So I'm posing the hand using those selections, using masks, and then just using a little transpose line, starting to rotate them, rotate from the knuckle to get the hand into the pose that I want. And I have this reference up, my key reference for this hand up the whole time on my other monitor. So really important to know where you're headed, or else you're going to spend a lot of time just kind of dancing around and iterating and not exactly sure where you're going to go. All right, then I pull out the nails on the ends of the fingers, just draw a quick mask again, and then with the move brush, I can just yank them out. And then we're really going to start defining more forms now. In this case, the knuckles, the pads on the palm. So same tools now, we're just going around with that standard brush, clay buildup, and dam standard. Those are really all you need to really make clean forms, and we can get into details later. But I'm going to be doing this all the time now, and I'm also going to be continually refining the pose. So continually refining the pose and the sculpture. I'll show this example of making the finger move through. As you can see, like after I pull it out, it's simple. I start making planes, and then I'm kind of starting to break up the forms, right? We're going from big to small, like getting the measurement. Where's the seams going to be for the wrinkles for where it bends? Where's the knuckle going to be? Where's the skin going to be where it connects to the hand? And then we start laying in like smaller wrinkles where the knuckles are and stuff like that. So it's getting more detailed as it goes. All right, so now this is really where the most time is spent. The bulk of the work is the sculpting. So let's just take a look at this, and I'll give some commentary and some thoughts and tips as I see them. You can see here just defined that bone at the end of the wrist. And again, you can also see the brushes I'm using in the lower left, but I'm just gonna be switching between those main brushes, like I said, and also dancing around. So hopefully it's not too confusing, but here we go. Using inflate too sometimes, that's great to do around where the skin bunches up and like the pads on the inside of the fingers. You can see these kind of catching arc shapes I do with the wrinkles too. So if I'm drawing a wrinkle in one direction, I kind of do the opposite in the other direction and have them make these little zigzag patterns. Using dam standard again to define where the knuckle's gonna be, the hard edge around the knuckle. And I just used pinch right there. That's another cool brush that I use occasionally. That's just a really fast way to make like things taper. So I just go to the brush palette to grab that, but pinch, that's kind of a interesting brush that I'll use occasionally. And you can see when I build up these forms too, that I'm like going against the grain, you might say, to build up this tube shape. And there I am even removing it. And I like buildup because it gives a little bit of the texture on the sculpture, and then I just smooth it. But if you want, you can kind of leave some of that texture. Sometimes you want direction. You can see how I'm building up form now by making these kind of crisscrossy patterns. So I just made a quick mask and tweaked the thumb shape. So always doing that. So we're kind of repeating the same steps from earlier, but just continually, right? And then the sculpting itself is going to get more detailed as time goes on. But again, tweaking the shape of the finger and this, because it's an elderly hand too, the skin's going to feel a bit loose. At least that's what I'm going to try to convey, especially the skin around the fingers, but the hand in general. I want it to feel like an older hand and one that's been through some stuff, you know, has been moving its whole life. So there's a definite quality that I'm going to be trying to maintain. And so the wrinkles, the major folds, and eventually some details are going to help reinforce that. And you can see how low with this finger, see how low the topology still is. This is something that I see a lot of times is people will subdivide or do a high Dynamesh a little quickly. You know, I want to keep it as low as I can. There's still so much time. The most time spent is in this stage of doing secondary forms. The primary forms, the main stuff, that's what we did in the beginning. The like big overall shapes and measurements. But this stuff where I'm just like, you know, detailing things and things are like wrinkles and details are coming online. That's the bulk of the time. That means most of the time it's going to be kind of low. Now here you see me building up the finger, again, doing those little catching arcs like I mentioned, and then using that standard brush with the chisel to pull out kind of an edge. I'll do that along the fingers too, but that way I get kind of a sharp edge. That's why I like the brush like that. Here we go, starting to get the wrinkles on the pinky too. Always putting off the pinky. Sad pinky. Never getting the love, but eventually it'll get there too. So here's some of that stretchy, like loose skin that I mentioned that I want to get in, and how it blends into the finger. Again, when you're zooming in, you can see how low it is still, because once I go up in Dynamesh, I can always just go over all the form. I plan to do that anyway to crisp it up, so I don't want to spend too much time. The higher, like the more dense the mesh, the more friction it's going to have to manipulate it. I want to be fast and loose here, so just keep it low. And now even by making the clay buildup brush smaller, I can do smaller wrinkles. I'm also using this as a tool to sketch in where things are going to go before I commit to it, or maybe even before I use damn standard, and I can just reinforce stuff. You can see how small I can get with wrinkles still, even at this resolution. And you can see in the upper left, my resolution is at 400 now, so we're upping it. And when I did that, might be worth noting that I have blur at 0 and I have project on when Dynameshing, and that's to preserve the shape as much as possible. When I Dynamesh, I don't want it to change, right, how it looks. I just want more polygons. And then once that happens, I can just go over and smooth stuff to get rid of that faceted look from the lower polygon mesh we just updated. So now I can make smaller details and come over and start smoothing things out, and then just adding, you know, smaller, more complicated forms and shapes. And so we're at a pretty good place now, feeling pretty good. A little longer, and then we should be ready to start doing detail. And again, I'm just going to be refining, going over and over again. Another little thing I did on the nails is I'll use trim dynamic, as you see right here, and I just go over the tips of the nails and just start making like planes. And I can go up and down and just kind of make it look like it's a nail with a little bit of faceting on it. So I actually just duplicated this arm and I Z-remeshed it. So I'm turning this first hand that we just made into the base mesh so I can make a second hand, because in this I'm actually doing a composition with 2 hands. We're going to kind of breeze by this part, but I just wanted to throw it in there to show you that's part of this process and how you can turn a sculpt into a base mesh. So I'm polygrouping these fingers. So is this as good as a production hand? No, but by doing something with Dynamesh, that doesn't mean that we have to stay in Dynamesh. And the reason why I made this a base mesh was I was going to change up the hand. I'm going to do a younger hand. So I didn't want to have to manipulate that Dynamesh so much, right? So I thought I'll just make it a base mesh, and then I can resculpt it. So I get the form of the hand. I get all that work we did in the beginning, but then I'll resculpt it. So I'm just bending this arm now. This is part of the composition. I'm realizing I need the hand to look more like it's relaxed and bent, and now I'm going to be trying to put this second hand into position. So I spend a lot of time sculpting the second hand too. We won't spend as much time on that since we're focusing on this first one, but the steps are the same. It's just different subject slightly. It's still a hand, but just a little bit different kind of character to it. So really trying to get this hand right. I actually ended up just going to my bathroom and taking pictures of my own hand to get the pose right. I spent too much time going back and forth, and I still am going to play a lot with like all the little finger poses, the angle, because I'm also trying to work out the final composition, like the final like shot, and like whether or not the fingers touch. And so, you know, this is kind of the art part of it, or the feeling. So that kind of stuff is more personal, but you see like the steps are the same, right? Masking, rotating. And something a little bit different in this workflow you can see while I'm working on this hand is because it's a base mesh, It's done with the subdivision method. As you can see at the top, I'm at subdivision level 4. And so you'll see the resolution change because part of sculpting in ZBrush is going up and down in resolution. That way I can make bigger changes by dropping down, and then I can go back up where it's really high and I can work on those details, like crisp things up. Whereas Dynamesh is just, you know, a stagnant state. You just go up in polygons. And then while you're working, you don't go up and down. I could turn this into a mesh and reproject though, but it's not necessary. This is just a sculpting exercise. So I'm just keeping it Dynamesh. And here we go. Now I'm using the clay brush, different than clay buildup, as you can see. It doesn't have that toothy kind of detail. And another feature of it is it builds up form with a little bit of a softer fall off. It's a little more round, and also it's doing a smooth as you sculpt. So we're getting a little bit closer look here. So you can see it helps me build these rounder forms, and as you cross in and out with your strokes, it'll blend them together because, like I say, it's doing kind of a smooth while you're doing a stroke. So this is a softer kind of sculpting brush, and I'm using it primarily here to lay in all of the smaller skin folds and wrinkles, and it helps me blend. You know, I can just be a lot more delicate, and it's not going to be as noisy as the clay buildup would be. So it kind of depends on the subject matter, you know, what you're doing. But this helps, right? Because it's making these rounded forms. So in this case, it made sense for me to use the clay brush, but use whatever you want. That's what's cool about ZBrush. There's a lot of brushes in there. Everyone's got a favorite, and there's always a brush for a certain job. Damn standard though, everybody loves damn standard. You know, I'm using that again here to do the finer things, the sharper things. I also have my own fine line brush, which I'll use for really small, fine wrinkles. It's fun to do this right here where I'm crisscrossing. I always love doing that when I'm sculpting skin. You can see like just making the lines intersect with each other a little bit, just coming in at varying angles so that they create like little Y's and little X's and stuff. And also I'm varying my hand. Like I'm not doing a straight line, you know, I'm trying to do flowy lines, kind of S shapes and in different ways. So this is fun. I enjoy this part, and it also helps to bring your sculpture to life a little bit more. It feels more organic, feels more, in this case, human. And it's just fun to see this kind of illusion happening. You see, I'm also pillowing out the shapes now as they cross. It creates now like sub shapes, little pads that I can inflate or use the clay brush to add more volume. And then that breaks it up too. So I just used my standard brush again to make these veins. Another fun detail is to add veins. These wrinkles on the wrist are the clay brush. So again, softer, but I can just straight up use it for wrinkles, which is awesome. And then if I need to do something sharp, that'd be damn standard again. I can always use inflate. I can use standard to bring things out. So you can see same brushes. I kind of feel like my mouth is saying the same words over and over again, but hopefully just by seeing it in action, you can see how much mileage you can get. And that's something, I guess, that might be obvious, but it's not about the brushes, right? It's just about manipulating the form. And sometimes, honestly, I don't even remember, like as I'm watching this video, I'm remembering brushes I used. So I think it's really key to be doing things like this and doing studies so that you can learn what brushes you like, just experiment. And then you'll get a better idea of how it manipulates the form. Oh, here I am using my fine wrinkles brush for my skin brushes pack, actually. And again, doing the crisscrossy thing, which is super fun. So I'm like going in one direction and then going in the opposite direction. And then that creates this like checker pattern of organic shapes. And then once that happens, I'm kind of using those shapes that just happen, those happy accidents, to come in and form other shapes. Again, fun stuff. And I'm not following this reference that much at this point. I'm just adding detail. I mean, I'm following a little bit, but I'm not like making myself really stick to it. By doing exercises like this, by sculpting, you learn how you can get shapes. That's kind of what happens, right? Is if you're going to do a study, it forces you to figure out how to make a form. You might not know how to do it. And so by using different brushes, experimenting, eventually you'll create something that creates that effect that you're after. And then that becomes a tool in your toolkit. You want to get to the place where you're not thinking about the brushes anymore. You just know you need to make a particular kind of shape, and then your hands just kind of do it. You know, you get your normal go-to bag of tricks eventually, the more you do these. So I'm definitely not thinking about, well, what brush now? I'm just thinking about like, oh, I need to make this look like this. I need to make this look like this. And then I'm just doing it. All right, so this other hand, I'm going to be sculpting it and getting it ready to go to. Again, we're going to breeze by it, but I'm going to be refining the pose a lot. Like I say, I took some extra reference and I just want to get that right. This is going to be a younger hand, so it's not going to have as many wrinkles. But same process, you know? I'm using clay to build up the forms, clay buildup, clay for wrinkles, damp standard for the creases. These poly groups make it easy to select the fingers, and it's nice to have subdivision levels because I can go up and down. I'm comfortable working that way, and so you have a lot more freedom and you have a lot more control over the forms you're making by doing that workflow. So you can see here, kind of going through the same workflow. Again, kind of the most satisfying part here, you know, towards the end, the main forms are there, the main problems are solved, and then I'm getting to kind of break up the forms more detailed stuff, more like anatomy, trying to get this wrist bone and the wrinkles on the inside of the palm here. This is also pointing towards camera, so I'm aware of that, and I'm focusing time here with just damn standard in my standard brush, just making it nice and crispy. So then, yeah, when we're at the end, then we have this composition. I'm happy with it. Lots of iteration. This one was a little bit of a struggle. I thought, oh, I'll make two hands. And it turned out to be more work than two hands, I think, because I just wasn't super clear. I had a clear idea when I started that I wanted this young hand kind of reaching out to an older hand from the perspective of the viewer. It took a while to get the poses and the angle, you know, to a spot that I was happy with. But we got there. I'm happy with how it came out. So here is the finished models. Now I'm going to send this over to Maya. So the way I do that is, you know, these are just sculpts. These are supposed to be smaller projects. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to use Decimation Master so I can get these out of here. I'm even going to do that with the subdivision hand. You know, I'm not going to make UVs and make a displacement map and all that. I'm just using the high poly models, and then I'm decimating it so that they look the same, but their topology is all janky because it's really crunched down, which is okay. It's just to make it lighter for me to save, export, and import into Maya. And then I'm going to use triplanar nodes in Maya that let me project textures with no UVs. So I don't care about UVs right now. I'm just going to move it to Maya to make a presentation, to make an image that's more appealing with nice lighting. So once I'm in Maya, I import the models. I made this scene. This is a scene that I've already set up, so I don't have to reset it up. And then I just get it in the camera at the right angle. I move the light around to a spot that I think works best for the composition. In this case, I thought a top-down light made the most sense. So that's what I did. And then I applied the shader that I made, which is also in here. And I also made sure that the tiling and the size of the detail is fine. I made these maps in Substance Alchemist and then tweaked them and stuff. So this video is not really about the presentation and rendering in Arnold. I'm going to make a video for that though. I've gotten several questions on my Instagram about this. So I thought that'd be another good subject for a video like this. So we'll do a little bit more of a longer, deeper dive and demo into how I do this like presentation with my sculpts in Maya, if you want to do something like that too. So once I have it positioned and I have the shot set up and I have the shader applied, all that's left is to render it at a high resolution. And then several minutes later, we have a nice pretty picture that Arnold rendered out of the hands that we just made. All right, that does it for today's video. I hope you found it informative or entertaining in some way. If you did, please do hit that like button. And coming up, I've got a couple other videos planned. Maybe the next one is going to be that rendering in Arnold video, how to do nice presentations of your sculpts. And it'll be a good kind of gateway into some Arnold techniques and rendering stuff. So maybe that'll be next. I also have some art projects cooking in the background. So we're just going to try to keep this ball rolling. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.